Hey guys, it's our first video for the Medea unit, and it's an introduction to Euripides and Medea. Students will be able to list key information about Euripides and Greek drama and compare it to modern drama is our lesson objective. The question I want you to have in your mind is, what is Medea by Euripides and why are we reading it? Let's first situate ourselves in the semester. Our overarching theme of this semester is semester 1, how voice shapes the truth. In literature, there's always a voice telling the story, and that voice has a lot of power. And so that voice can change the truth from what maybe someone else thought it was to what they think it is. And it's important to look at that, to look at who is telling the story in literature and how that might change the truth. So in Unit 0, you guys wrote your own essays, and so you were the storyteller. And in that one, for Unit 0, you were really asking the question, how can I use my own voice to tell a truth about me, right? In Unit 1, Medea by Euripides, Slanting the Truth, we're going to look at how to analyze voice in literature. And as we read the play, I'm going to ask you to watch for how Medea uses her voice to slant or change, shift the truth a little bit to get what she wants. Unit 2, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, will be rejecting their truth in that one. And then Unit 3, The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, is there any objective truth? We'll be questioning in that one. And then finally, we'll end the semester by revising one of the 2 literary essays you write in Units 2 and 3. So, Medea by Euripides, Slanting the Truth. We've got some formative assessments, the unit packet again, and mastery checks, and then a summative assessment, which for this unit is actually going to be an in-class exam worth 50 summative points. All right, let's tackle the first question. How is analyzing drama different than other literary forms? Well, what are the 4 forms of literature, you ask? I'm so glad you asked. I'm going to tell you. Prose fiction is the first, and this is the one you have spent the most time reading and analyzing. Short stories, novels are example of Mice and Men by Steinbeck. Prose nonfiction is the second form. This is memoirs and essays. First They Killed My Father is an example of prose nonfiction. And then we've got drama, plays, theater, The Crucible, Familiar. This year we're reading Medea. And then finally, poetry, which is verse, like the Maya Angelou poem, Still I Rise. What's different about analyzing drama? Well, drama is the only one that is meant to be performed and viewed as an audience. So when we're analyzing it, we have to add this layer of imagination and imagine what it would have been like to watch the play performed, hear the actors voice their lines, and be in this one place, this one space of time there at the theater. There's also some different things happening in a play. We have primary text and secondary text in a play. So primary text is the main body of the play. It's spoken by the characters. Secondary text is anything else. So stage directions are secondary text. We also have multimedia elements to consider, like music, sound effects, lighting, stage props, space, the stage, the setting itself, where the audience is watching or where the actors are performing, and perspective, the point of view from which the information is given. Which character gives which piece of information? How does that affect meaning in the play? So those are some things to consider. Now, when we talk about and also time, how long it takes to view the play, and then how time works within the play itself. In Medea, it happens over one day. So let's talk a little bit more about Medea and the author Euripides. Euripides is an ancient Greek tragedian who lived from 480 to 406 BCE. Just a quick note about BCE, it stands for Before Common Era, and the years are counted in reverse. It's not how they were counting them back then, it's how we're counting them now. And so you move backward from year 1 BCE, and the farther back you go, the larger the number. That's why he was born in 480 and died in 406. Okay, so he was living in the 5th century BCE. He was one of 3 ancient Greek tragedians whose plays survived in full. The other 2 are Aeschylus and Sophocles, and of those 3, he was known as the innovator. He was the youngest, and what he innovated most importantly was the characters of his plays. He made characters who went beyond the traditional and mythical heroes because they were also ordinary people that the audience could identify with, who just happened to be in extraordinary circumstances. And maybe that's why we can relate to his plays so well today. He wrote more than 90 plays during his time period. Only 18 survived. And Medea was first performed in 431 BCE, 5th century BCE. It was one of 3 plays he performed that year, and it won last place. The Athenian audience had trouble with this play. It probably made them uncomfortable because Medea is a shocking character. And it made them question certain things about how the world works, how their world works, that things could go so badly. All right, let's talk a little bit about this next question, Aristotle. What did Aristotle say about tragedy and tragic heroes in the Poetics? Aristotle is an ancient Greek philosopher, and he was writing about 100 years after Medea was first performed. And what he was doing was, in the Poetics, this is the first published substantial work of literary criticism in 335 BCE. And so he was looking at the work that came before his time and creating a handbook for future playwrights and audiences. So we can gain a lot of insight through how ancient plays tick the boxes or don't that Aristotle set up. The theories still influence how we think about modern plays and other literature now. And one thing that was really important is his definition of tragedy. So let me read it to you. And it's in your packet already. You don't have to write it down. An imitation of an action that is serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude, in language embellished with each kind of artistic ornament, the several kinds being found in separate parts of the play, in the form of action, not of narrative, through pity and fear affecting the proper purgation of these emotions. All right, let's take it step by step. First of all, serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude. He believed that a good tragedy must evoke feelings of fear and pity in the audience. And in order to do that, first of all, the play has to be serious, complete, and of a certain magnitude. What does it mean? The play is not comedic. It's not funny in intent. There were comedic plays, but the tragedies are not one of them. Complete, each play in a tragedy trilogy can stand on its own, and that's lucky for us because we've lost most of the tragedies that were written in ancient Greece. Of the 300 or so plays we know were created and performed, only 30 survive. And certain magnitude, legendary heroes, royal families. These are people whose lives would have a sizable impact on others. And their difficulties aren't minor. These are stories about murder, vengeance, betrayal, memorable stuff. How about the next piece? Language embellished. means not only poetry, but song. The chorus actually presented their lines in song, in the form of action, not of narrative. Well, this means we watch as characters interact through dialogue and as events unfold, instead of being told by a single narrative voice what happened. This next part, pity and fear affecting the proper purgation of these emotions. This is all about the idea of catharsis. So let me tell you about catharsis a little bit. Catharsis is an intense emotional experience in response to viewing the play, which results in a feeling of relief. And think of it now, when you watch a movie, when you read a book and you are moved to tears, you are experiencing catharsis. You're crying about somebody who doesn't exist, right? And yet you are emotional to the point where you are starting to cry. That's an interesting thing that we humans do. And Aristotle noticed this in 335 BCE. And he actually believed, and others since then have written quite a lot about this, that the idea was that it actually helped a city-state. It helped them function better, because if you purge your emotions, if you get rid of these emotions by watching something fake during a play, you might be able to go and deal with the tough situations and choices that you have to make when it comes to, running a city-state, running a government. So you have a good cry at the theater, and then you can go and make some good decisions and not cry in front of public when you're, debating the other presidential candidate or something like that, perhaps. The term catharsis comes from the ancient Greek word that sounds the same, which originally meant purification or cleansing. So it's this idea that we are purged of the pain. We get rid of the pain. We are purified and cleansed from those harmful things by experiencing these tragic events in drama form. And that's a fascinating idea if you think about it. It's actually making us healthier, happier people. All right, let's talk about tragic heroes. Here's one of my favorite actors to play tragic heroic roles, Leonardo DiCaprio, in 3 tragic hero roles he played. Well, Aristotle had a lot to say about what makes a tragic hero a tragic hero. First of all, they have to be virtuous. In Aristotle's time, that meant the character should be a noble, but it also meant that they could be capable and powerful of being heroic, responsible for honor and morality, and in an important enough role that they had some kind of power to make decisions that would affect others. They also had to be flawed. So while being heroic, the character also had to have a tragic flaw, or more generally be subject to human error. And the flaw must lead to the character's downfall. So on the one hand, these flaws make the character relatable, someone with whom the audience can identify, but just as important, it makes the tragedy more powerful because the tragedy is internal to the character. It's not just some outside force, but it starts and it happens because of something the character does, something that the tragic hero initiates. And then the tragic hero also had to suffer a reversal of fortune. So the character should suffer a terrible reversal from good to bad. And such a reversal does not merely mean a loss of money or status. It means that the work should end with the character dead or in immense suffering, and to a degree that outweighs what it seems like the character deserved. What's interesting about the play Medea is that there could be 2 tragic heroes. And most plays are named after the tragic hero. In Medea, a lot of literary critics have said that Medea is not actually the tragic hero. So we'll talk about this a lot as we read. All right, your next question is about the structure of the play. In your packet, I have given you these, the structural overview of the first half and then the structural overview of the second half of the play. You don't need to write these down. They're listed in your packet, but I just want to show you kind of what I'm talking about here. First of all, the key pieces of a Greek tragedy structure are the prologue, which is the opening scene with exposition. The next part of the structure is the parados, and this is the chorus's entrance song. And then we have the episode, the first episode, which is dialogue, a dialogue scene between characters. Following it is the choral ode, which is interludes commenting on the action that we've just seen. Now, the episode and the choral ode are going to alternate then throughout the play. So you can see by page 21, we're on the third episode and the third choral ode. So we have one episode, one choral ode, and then the second, third, et cetera, until we get to the last episode and choral ode. And then finally we have the Exodus, and the Exodus is the final scene concluding the play. And so these are the different pieces of structure, and you'll use these terms when you talk about places in the play. All right, so instead of saying on page 21, Medea does this, you're going to say in the third episode. If you have a quotation, you'll include, the page number that it takes place on afterwards. But we'll use these terms rather than page numbers just to show that, hey, we know this is a play that's meant to be seen, performed, and it's an ancient Greek play, so it follows this particular structure. We're not just going to talk about page numbers. All right, moving on to how the play would have been performed and experienced by an audience. First of all, these took place on festival days. So these were big parties celebrating the Greek god of Dionysus. They were competitive, and they took place in an outdoor amphitheater called a theatron that held up to 15,000 people seated. And if you think about it, it's pretty incredible because there were no electronic amplification systems, and 15,000 people, that's as many people as go to see a Timberwolves game at the Target Center. So imagine you're at a Timberwolves game at the Target Center and there's no amplification system and no lighting. So you're outdoors and you're watching the performers on the court and just listening to them and nothing else. That's what it would have been like. There weren't any special effects or lights, practically no scenery. Sometimes there were cranes and machines operating. We have one in Medea at the end of the play we'll talk about, but not a lot, just that outdoor light and the voices of the actors. Here's what it would have looked like. You would have been sitting up here, and the actors would be in this place performing on the stage. And they would have been wearing these elaborate masks. There were only 3 actors on a stage at one time acting, and then the chorus members, 12 to 15 on a stage. And the costumes had these elaborate masks, maybe helping show their facial expressions because so many people would have been so far away. The actors were only men, so the female characters were played by men. And they had some training, but the chorus members had very little training at all. And Euripides would have done all of it. He would have written the lines, he was the director, he was the choreographer, and the composer. The last thing I want you to write about is the chorus. Chorus in an ancient Greek theater is very important. They are 12 to 15 people, and they're working in unison. It's interesting, the word chorus is actually... the closest translation to it is, the closest translation to the concept of directing a play in Greek is this should say teach a chorus. And so directing a play means teach a chorus. That's how central the chorus was to the original ancient Greek plays. The chorus sings and dances to music, and, so they weren't quite like looking like this, but they were moving in unison. They were moving together all at once. And it was a communal voice moving together. In Medea, this is interesting. The chorus is a group of Corinthian women. So we are in the city-state of Corinth, and they are all women, female. That wasn't always the case. The functions of the chorus were to provide background information, what had happened before the play began, reinforce a particular topic, emphasize something that's happening in the play, and then reflect the feelings of the audience. Finally, it would provide opinions and points of view about the action in the play, sometimes above or beyond the characters on the stage, taking a larger universal role, kind of like saying, hey, here's the theme that you should look at. This is the important part of the play. And so, of course, we're going to look carefully at that as we read the play. Thanks for hanging in there. Long video. You did great.